If you're thinking about buying a home in Lethbridge, Alberta, stop and watch this video first. These 5 types of homes could be a ticking time bomb for your wallet and your sanity. And I've seen buyers make these mistakes and regret it for years. So let me show you exactly what to avoid so you don't fall into these same traps. What's up guys, my name's Kurtis Hawkins and I've been a real estate agent for almost 4 years now. And in that time I've sold over 200 properties and I also own 4 investment properties throughout Lethbridge. So let's just say that I'm heavily invested in this market and I study it extensively. And throughout my research and my times that I've spent with clients, I've come up with a list of properties that you might want to avoid. However, I do have a quick disclaimer here, and even though I'm saying you should never buy these types of homes, it doesn't mean that they don't have their place for everyone. And I'm going to talk about that coming up here. Just know that when I talk about these types of homes, I'm talking about this from more of an investment standpoint based on cost and appreciation. But not all homes, as we know, are based on these investment type of mindset. I would say that 90% of homes that are purchased are based, first on a survival standpoint, because we all need a place to live. And second is from a more emotional standpoint, or maybe even a convenience standpoint. But for now, let's get into the 5 properties that you should never buy. The first property that I believe that no one should ever buy from an investment standpoint is a mobile home. Especially a mobile home in a park that is leased, or if you're on leased land or something. Now these types of homes are popular because they're a lot cheaper than the traditional attached home, just at face value anyway. A mobile home can sell from anywhere from $60,000 up to maybe $250,000 for a brand new one, which is obviously a lot cheaper than a single family detached home with the same square footage. However, there can be some hefty monthly park fees that are quickly going to drain your bank account. For example, there are some parks here in Lethbridge that charge upwards of $500 to $600 per month. And now that fee can sometimes pay for things like snow removal, yard maintenance, and sometimes even utilities if you're lucky. But more often than not, they're not going to. And you're going to be stuck with that $500 a month park fee. Plus, you're still going to have to pay for property tax, utilities, insurance, etc. These are the other variables that you just can't control. And the other variable that you can't control is that when that lot fee is increased. So at any time you could wake up and be hit with an increase of that fee every single month. And there's literally nothing you can do about it. The other reason you're going to want to avoid buying a mobile home is that they're very hard to get financing for. Again, this is assuming that you don't own the land and you're on some sort of a leased property. The reason for this is because mobile homes rarely appreciate, and in fact, most often they actually go down in value over time. Now, it is possible to sell a mobile home for a profit just based on what you bought it for, what you sold it for. But once you add in that lot fee again every single month, you're probably going to lose money on an investment like this. So I guess when would be a good time to buy a mobile home? Well, if you own the land, like you have your own farm or an acreage or just even a vacation property, and you want a really cost-effective way to put a home on your land, then this could be a good option. Or if you're older and you're wanting to downsize and you're happy paying a park fee that's going to take care of any exterior maintenance like snow removal and landscaping, then maybe that lot fee is worth it for you to pay every month. However, I would still recommend owning an apartment over a mobile home if this was the case, but some people just really like having a detached home over an apartment, but still an apartment would be a better investment. So actually, let's talk about apartments next. Now, the second property that I believe you should never buy in Lethbridge is an apartment because historically speaking, they just don't appreciate in value. However, in the last couple of years, we have seen some pretty good increases. So if that appreciation keeps up, maybe I'll have to take apartments off this list. However, historically speaking, and this is actually what I tell my clients when we're out looking at them, that if you buy an apartment here in Lethbridge for $100,000, just be prepared to sell it for $100,000. Now, unless you buy a really rundown apartment and you plan on doing a bunch of renovations, then maybe you can sell it for a profit. But even then, you're still going to really want to be cautious about how much money you're spending and putting into that apartment on those renovations, because it can be very hard to get your money out of it at the end of the day. So if you look at this graph here, if you bought an apartment for the average price of $176,000 in January of 2014, which is 10 years ago, it's a long time ago, that should give you a big run for appreciation. And if you were to put that same apartment on the market to sell in January of 2024, the average sale price was just $183,000, which is an increase of only 4% over the last 10 years. And that's not 4% a year, that's 0.4% every year. So after you adjust that for inflation, you're probably better off just putting that payment in the bank every year. And of course, apartments also have that dreaded condo fee, which is what we call them here in Alberta, and in other parts of the country they call them a strata fee. Now these fees are much more useful than a park fee, most of the time anyway, but they usually include the majority of your insurance you'll need, all the exterior maintenance and common ground maintenance, and even a reserve fund, which is basically a savings account that the condo association builds up in case they need to replace the roof or the siding or anything like that. And I would say in Lethbridge, it's about 50-50 whether or not those condo fees are going to cover your utilities or not. But like with any condo fee, again, you can never control when that condo fee is going to be increased. Or worse, if there's a special assessment that gets announced, most of the time those are going to be for big expenses that aren't going to happen often, and they're usually only done on an emergency basis. But again, you're not going to have any control over those costs. So when would be a good time to buy one of these properties? Well, as a first-time homebuyer, I actually think that owning an apartment is better than owning nothing at all. I mean, for as little as a $5,000 to $10,000 down payment, at very least, you can have a place to call your own. And while you're there, you can pay off a portion of your mortgage to at least build up a little bit of equity to continue to save for an upgrade down the road. Now, if you work out of town a lot, then I think an apartment would actually be a very good option because you're paying that condo for every month. You basically just have to lock the door and leave any time without having to worry about things like shoveling your sidewalk or mowing the lawn, etc. Now, if you're thinking of downsizing or retiring, I would highly recommend buying an apartment rather than a mobile home. Now, I know you're not going to have your own detached property, and yes, you're going to have some neighbors beside you, but your condo fee is going to go a lot further than those lot fees, and it's likely going to hold its more value a lot better than a mobile home. Now, there's nothing that's going to give you that charming, romantic feeling of an older, historic estate home in downtown Lethbridge. However, homes that are over 100 years old are going to be a lot of work, and they're going to be quirky, especially if the guts of the home are still original. This could be a giant headache for you. Now, I often hear this saying, they don't build homes like they used to. And to me, that saying is absolute BS. But okay, let's pretend you're right. I mean, they certainly don't build homes with lead pipes anymore. They don't use knob and tube wiring for electrical. And they don't use asbestos for insulation anymore. Today, we use a lot safer products that are a lot more efficient. So no, they certainly do not build homes like they used to. So if you're a first-time home buyer or you don't have a lot of money to pour into an historic estate home, then stay very far away. When it comes to purchasing one of these older houses, you're going to have to be very familiar with foundations, with plumbing, with electrical, with literally everything that goes into a home. Otherwise, you're going to have to spend a ton of money whipping this place up into shape. So when would be a good time to buy a 100-year-old home? Well, if you wanted to purchase an older home with the intention of fixing it up, if you know what you're doing and you have a massive budget, then these places can be very charming investments and it can make for an incredible home. Or even if most of these major upgrades have already been completed, then maybe you could get away with it. But I would say for 90% of people out there, just stay away. I can promise you it's going to be a lot of work and it's going to be a lot of time and it's going to be a lot of money. Now, this type of home is a bit harder to narrow down because there's not really one type of category. But if there's a home with asbestos, you definitely, maybe, probably will want to reconsider. You see, asbestos is an older type of insulation and it can actually get into your lungs and it can even progress towards COPD or unfortunately, even lung cancer. However, if there is asbestos in your home, it doesn't mean that you're going to get cancer or that it's very dangerous. I know I just gave you that whole warning there, and there is a lot of like overblown hype about asbestos and how bad it is. But for example, there is a chance that older linoleum, like from the 70s, has asbestos. Some of the popcorn ceiling from that same era could also have asbestos in it. And there's even some insulation that has asbestos. And the honest truth is that asbestos is kind of everywhere in older houses, and it doesn't have to be a 100-year-old house either. But the example that I want to bring up here is asbestos insulation, and it's most likely in the attic space of these older homes. And from what I've heard from trades and remediation specialists is that if you have asbestos up in your attic, as long as you leave it alone and it's not disturbed, it's not going to harm you. So don't freak out too much. But if you plan on renovating, like taking down drywall out of your ceiling, or you're adding lights up there and you're going to expose and disturb that asbestos, you're going to have to do some remediation, and it's going to be very pricey, especially if you're going to be taking it all down. Even if you're tearing down a house that has asbestos, that can be very pricey to get that whole area remediated, and it can also be very timely as well. Not to mention that when you go to sell the home, if you haven't remediated the asbestos already, there's going to be fewer buyers out there for your home. You're going to have to find that special buyer that is going to be okay to have asbestos in their house. And I'm not saying that the house won't sell at all, but it is going to narrow down your buyers pretty significantly. Now, the last type of property that you're going to want to steer away from is acreages. Now, out of all these types of properties, why would I say acreages? Now, with an acreage, you're going to have space, you're going to have peace and quiet. So what could actually be so bad about all that? Well, this is another one of those properties that's going to sound very romantic and dreamlike in the beginning, but without knowing all the costs, they could sneak up on you quite quick. And not just financially. Acreages can drain your time like no other. It's almost like having a second job. Not to mention, you're going to be further away from town, and that 20-minute drive the first time out to the acreage might seem peaceful, but it could turn into a big pain. Now, there's a lot more things to consider when moving to an acreage, like maintenance for one. Maybe you're going to need to invest in a ride-on lawnmower. Is there water out there? Is there a water well? Is the water in the well any good? Do you have to get the water trucked in? Is there a sewer? Is there a septic tank? When was the last time that septic tank has been serviced? And all of these little things come with the fact that you're living more remote, and the convenience of living in town are going to be taken away. And it literally becomes just as simple as, where does your water come from? You really take that for granted when you live in the city. Another thing to think about is garbage. Is there a landfill close by? Can you burn the garbage? Are you even allowed to? So unless you're prepared for the extra work of maintaining your own land, more commute times, monitoring your own utilities, then I would say that you should also stay away from acreages. So there you have it. There's the 5 properties that you might want to steer away from. And I know in the title I said you should never buy them, but of course there is a time and a place, and not every property is going to be perfect or not perfect for everybody out there. But I hope you guys learned something. And if you guys have any questions about the properties I talked about earlier, or any other properties that you're kind of curious about, then just leave a comment down below. And of course, if you guys are looking for a property in Lethbridge, Alberta, either to buy or sell, my name's Kurtis Hawkins with the Real Estate One team at Real Broker, and all of my contact information is located down below. Be sure to call, text, or email me anytime. And if you guys like this video and want to see more videos like this, then just hit that playlist button right there. And if you never want to miss another one, just subscribe.